Okay, so what up, friendos? Welcome back. Chrono Odyssey, right? This is a controversial one, I guess, because many people that have played it really hate it, say it's terrible, it's an awful game, and then there's a lot of people who think it's the greatest game ever, somehow. Now, I played the game yesterday for 8 hours on stream, and I recorded a video right after giving my first impressions, like immediate, visceral first impressions, and it was bad. Like, I rewatched it and I was incredibly harsh. I think the game is deserving of a lot of harsh criticism, to be honest, and I came away thinking the game was really bad, and there was simply no reason to play this game or be excited for it. And then I thought, I'll play for, a few hours today off stream and see if my opinion changes. And you'll be glad to know it didn't really in many ways. The game is not good. And this isn't to say it's the worst game ever, and if you enjoy the game, you're wrong, or that my opinion is correct. I just think that overall, the game is not going to be incredibly successful in its current state. If you told me this was an alpha test and it had 2 more years of development, I'd be like, okay, we're on the right track. Like, they have the bones, they have the foundation of something that could potentially go forward and be a good game. Like, not just, oh, it's new and I like MMOs and I only want to play MMOs, so I'm going to play it just because it's new type game, but actual could do well, could have a long-term audience and not just fall off a cliff and die within a couple months like what we've seen from many recent MMOs. We're quite far away from that, to be honest. And there's some weird narratives forming around this game that I just want to address real quick, and that is the CEO of this game has said basically what we're playing on currently is not a recent build. And I'm going to show you this on screen right now. It says from Bongun Bay, who is the guy, the CEO of the company, who totally has nothing to do with that other company. Believe me, guys, believe me, bro, just CEO of both, but we're not affiliated in any way to that other company. Trustworthy, very trustworthy individuals. So he says the version from the end of last year was the FGT version, and that's the one we were aiming for at the time. Our internal development build has improved significantly since then, so we hope you'll definitely join us for the second closed beta test. Now, before I get into my opinions of the game, let me just say that this is one of the fucking dumbest things I've ever seen, right? Because there's going to be people that are immediately going to hand-wave criticisms that people have of the game, legitimate, valid criticisms, by saying, one, it's a beta. Yeah, if this was 10 years ago, I'd totally agree with you, but this was obviously a marketing... this was a marketed playtest of a game that they're trying to release this year. So if you're then going to hand-wave criticism that, oh, it's a beta, you simply don't understand how long these games take to make, and the type of hours that would be required to get the game into a position that is possible to be successful and is even reasonable for a released product that costs money, because a lot of the aspects of this game are simply not worth paying for. It's a fucking bad product. The optimization specifically, you would not tell people to buy this based on how this game runs. It's terribly optimized. It performs awful, and that's coming from somebody with a 4090 and some of the best consumer hardware you can buy on a computer. That being said, being a beta doesn't mean you shouldn't criticize it. In fact, the best time to criticize something is when there is time for it to be changed, right? So if you're going to say, oh, don't talk about that because it's a beta, it will get better, talking about is how it gets better. It's part of the mechanism. That being said, if you release a marketed product to people and then say, oh, lol, JK, by the way, it's like a year out of date build, what the fuck was the point in us testing this build? Because any feedback we give you could already have been fixed in a build that you haven't let us play. So I don't understand what the purpose is other than stress testing the servers, which is fine then. Let everyone log into like a beginner area and see how many numbers you can get online. But having people, their first impression of a version of the game that is bad and old, and then saying, lol, JK, we have a better version, you just can't see it. My girlfriend goes to another school, you don't know her. Like, it doesn't make sense. And I'm not saying this to say that they're lying. I'm just saying that if you're going to release something and then say, oh, come and give us feedback on the game, come and test this game for us, tell us about the bugs, what the fuck is the point if you have a version where many of those bugs could have already been fixed and more bugs could have been introduced? It is a waste of fucking time. I don't know why this makes sense. I don't know what the point of this is. It's just seemingly totally fucking irrelevant and random. That being said, let's judge the game based on the game we've actually got to play, and not this idea of like there's another version that's so much better and amazing, and we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. So the current version of the game that we have, it depends what weapon you pick, but depending on which one you pick, you're going to have a vastly different experience. I started with a greatsword, and I thought the combat in this game was absolutely camel shit. I thought it was awful. Combine the movement with the combat in this game and like the terrible AI of some of the enemies and the buggy, glitchy nature of some of the enemies and the hitboxes not being great and the networking all playing a factor into this. The combat was awful. When I swapped to dual blades, the combat feels better. It feels like a game I could actually put hours in and play without feeling miserable while I'm doing the combat. So your mileage will vary on how you're going to feel with the combat depending on which class and which weapon you decide to pick to play with. That being said, in general, the combat is not as fluid and as nice feeling as some of the games that this is clearly drawing inspiration from. And if you were to like try and encompass the whole game in like one sentence, it would be Chrono Odyssey is New World from Temu, which is essentially what the game currently is. You might think that's harsh, especially considering New World is New World from Temu. But Chrono Odyssey is basically almost identical as like a gameplay loop and a world feeling and just what you're doing from minute to minute in the game to New World, but unpolished in every aspect. Like, if you were to ask me, should I play Chrono Odyssey or New World? I'd say neither. Play a good game. But if you were dead set on playing a game that plays in this specific way, I see almost no reason to play this over New World. And that's coming from a certified New World hater, somebody who thinks that the game isn't good and never really has been. New World has like a polished gameplay loop of like 50 hours that feels really good. Being in the game world feels great. The art is great. The music is great. The atmosphere is great. Running around gathering, the UI, the just things popping up when you level up and gather things is all really good. It's just unfortunately the rest of the game sucks, and the combat isn't great, and there's no real content. There's no design direction for the game. It's basically like a bastardized hybrid of a sandbox and a theme park MMO, but does neither of them well enough to draw in a crowd that would sustain the game's population for the future. And that's kind of what Chrono Odyssey feels like, only worse in most aspects. There are some cool things that Chrono Odyssey does differently than New World. Just specifically none that, at least in my time of playing the game, which is not enough to get like a full understanding of all the game systems and stuff. But from what I have played, there doesn't seem to be enough things in the game to just be like, oh yeah, this is definitely something I'd play long term, and not just new MMO comes out, I play for a couple of weeks and then move on, which is kind of where we are with most MMOs nowadays, especially when you factor in that monetization in this game is inevitably going to play a factor on how people can enjoy it, at least as far as I can tell. That's just the case with these games, and I expect no different, even if the developers are saying contradictory information otherwise. They said cosmetic only, then they said convenience as well, and I don't know where we fall on that, but convenience typically means what a lot of people would call pay to win. It would be skips, it would be things that give you quality of life, which obviously they then design the game to inconvenience you so they can sell you the convenient solution. That's what they mean by quality of life or convenience. So in general, the game, like, why is the game worse than the New World? The game world, I don't want to use the word deceptive, but if you look at the trailers of this game and then you play the game looks almost nothing alike. I played the game on the top settings. You want to turn them down because the game's optimized like absolute shit, of course. But I played the game on the top settings, and it looks nothing like the trailers, bro. The trailers are deceptive in making the game look like some crazy next generation game. If it looked like that with how it's currently optimized, the game would probably set fire to most people's computers and would simply not work, because again, the optimization is so poor that if it looked any better, it would probably perform even worse. That being said, if you're going to show trailers to make the game look like the craziest AAA MMO open world graphics ever, it should probably look something like that. It doesn't, but that's not the biggest issue with the game in terms of like being in the world. The AI is awful. It doesn't feel alive in any way. Mobs just like stand there and move from like scripted point A to point B. They don't even react until you're right next to them in most circumstances. A lot of the dynamic events are just the exact same copy pasted in area to area. Oh, on this hill there's a totem and there's like 4 enemies stood there. Over here there's a chest and 3 enemies spawn. That's like, aside from like some of the more in-depth quests of when you go into an area and it'll be like a little side quest to go and do something, that's kind of a lot of what you do finding when you're running around the world, if you're not interested in gathering, which takes fucking forever. You get new tools. The tools that you get makes the gathering faster, but it still takes forever. If you're using like what we currently have access to, the level 15 like pickaxe or whatever, gathering what I would assume is the equivalent, the tier 3 material with it, still takes such a long time. I can tab out and play another game at the same time that's happening. So what you have is like you're running around the game world, the NPCs, the AI is not good. Some of the events just flat out don't work. Like on the server that I'm playing, for the last 24 hours of trying, like one of the events that is a material you're tied behind like progress wise to make like the best armor we have access to right now, the ancestral whatever it's called, the event just doesn't fucking work. Half the time it doesn't spawn, and then when it does spawn, it just gets stuck in some like progress loop, and nothing spawns, and it's just sat there and nothing happens, which is presumably why they keep taking down the server to try to get it to work. So yeah, you just kind of, I mean, the game just doesn't work in certain regards. Multiple times I've gone into like the little bounty hunter instances for some of the enemies you have to find, and the enemy doesn't react to me and I have to reset it. Sometimes I land on something that's a little bit like sharp terrain or something, and my character gets stuck and I can't move. The game is just a buggy mess, to go with the unoptimized mess. But when the game actually works and you're doing the loop as intended, like go do the bounties, go gather, go kill monsters, do the dynamic events, go get your keys and go do these little dungeons and things, I honestly think the game is not bad. Like, I don't think it's terrible. I think it's enjoyable. Like, some of the solo trials are fun, like challenging, fun. It feels like I want to go and gather like stuff to make consumables because it makes it easier. There's definitely an element of this where I could see myself having fun with the game if it was a little bit more polished, and if there's enough of that content to feel fresh and to keep me in the loop of like getting better and better stuff. But in general, like if you package all of this game up together and tell me this is going to release this year, I have to say that the patch that they're holding back and the content that, you know, the new version that they're saying is way better has to be like a Jesus patch, essentially. It has to do so much, because if not, this is multiple years away from being done. But we just have so little actual content in the game, and the content that we have in the game it doesn't work or is very, very samey, that it's like there would have to be so much extra stuff, and all of this stuff would have to be polished for this to be a release ready game, and it just simply currently isn't. Like, that's just the truth, and whether you enjoy it or not is irrelevant to what I'm saying, because I look at these games like the everyman looks at these games. You might subjectively enjoy it, you might have none of the same problems that I have, you might think all the problems that I have are like overblown and I'm just being like a hate monger or whatever, but at the end of the day, I have a great track record in saying this. If the game releases like this without substantial changes, the game will be dead inside of a month or two. When I say dead, I don't mean literally closed and nobody playing. I mean it will have like a large population. It will fall off to like 10% or less in the first 2 months, and it will probably never recover. I don't want that. I want games to succeed, regardless of what people think about my opinion. I always want MMOs to come out and do well. I don't have like a vendetta against Korean MMOs. I played them, have done since I was like 10 years old, 20 plus years. I have no vendetta against Kakao. I appreciate Kakao, unlike many other people. They're not the greatest company ever. All their games are pay to win. But at the same time, of all the companies in the world, they're one of the few that are trying to bring us MMOs to the West. And I have to be appreciative of that, even if I don't agree with their methods. And even if most of the time I think the games that they are associated with are just pay to win garbage. We don't get all the games. So I'd like to have the games I can have fun with for a couple of weeks at a minimum. And then hope that one of them, outlasts that, rather than them not being in the space and us not having access to a bunch of games that we potentially could have had. So that's kind of where I am with like shitty publishers or whatever, or pay to win publishers, or games from Korea. A lot of them I have fun with. It just depends on for how long. And I definitely want this to succeed. I'm not saying this for like the good of my health. I'm not saying this because it's going to win me brownie points. I'm saying the game isn't good because I want it to be good. I want to play this game. I want to enjoy this game. And currently I could for, a week or two, but then I'd be throwing it in the trash like most people would be. Seemingly right now, the only real reason to play Chrono Odyssey is because there's no barrier for entry because it's free during this playtest. And seemingly the only reason to play in this current iteration on launch will be because it's new. If it's not new, nobody would care. It's just simply not a good game right now. I also just want to say, for the record, there's a lot of people that are of the opinion anyone who likes this, if they're a content creator, they were paid. And I just want to say, in most countries, if you are paid to do something and then you don't disclose it as like an influencer, you are literally committing a crime and you are bannable by YouTube due to their TOS. So if your first initial reaction is this content creator has optimism, or they feel differently and they just like things that I don't, they are somehow compromised and they are ethically, morally wrong and bad, and they're selling out their audience or whatever, you simply, you're just making up lies about somebody committing what is in many places a crime because they like something that you don't. Am I saying that some people are not going to, sugarcoat things and maybe fence it or whatever due to access that they have? No, some people will have biases, of course, good or bad. That can exist, but hurling insults at people and saying that they're like a paid shill or whatever. This is not about me, by the way. This is about people like Cannon, who people are going crazy at because he likes the game and is giving it positive coverage over the months. I just think people could do with a little bit of tempered emotions when it comes to stuff like this, and just understand the simplest explanation is probably the most likely one, and that is they probably just hope the game's going to be good, and they are more optimistic or positive people than you are. And just because you don't like something doesn't mean another person couldn't like it more than you, and therefore have a different opinion. That being said, I don't hate this game. I certainly don't like it to the point where I would put any more time into. I think once the game comes back up from maintenance today, I'll go and try to see if that event works, to see if I can progress through and get that armor. And as soon as I get that, I'll probably stop playing the playtest. I see absolutely no reason to continue to give feedback on a build that is irrelevant. They basically just said with this announcement of oh, it's an old build, by the way, it's almost a year old, that what we're doing makes no fucking difference, other than just being in a game that is not the product that we're going to be playing even in the next patch. And for the people on the subreddit that are basically dismissing and hand-waving all criticism as oh, it's a test, why are you criticizing a test? You guys are dumb as fuck. You should criticize things when they're at the time when criticism could actually shape what the game is, and not wait for it to be served out as a product that needed that criticism and then be like, oh, now I've paid for it and it's bad. What do we do? Because that's when a game's going to have its most difficulty in maintaining a player base. Because not only is changing a released product harder, because taking things away from people is harder in something that they paid for, even if the thing needs to be taken away for the health of the game, but also patching to a live environment is considerably more difficult than it is patching to a version of a game that we get served to us every now and again that we never paid for. That being said, let me know your experience with the game. Hopefully you're enjoying it if that's something you've been able to do, and we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully this internal update that they've held back for whatever reason is going to be the Jesus patch, and it's going to make the game substantially better. If not, if it releases this year, I don't think this game's going to do well at all. So there we go. If I do play more and my opinion changes at all, if it's anything worthy of an opinion in a video, I will release that, and if not, let's leave it there for now and see what happens with the next update. So thanks for watching. As always, check the links in the video description. Suggest content if you want to see me cover it. And also, if you want to buy some gamer subs, go buy some cool waifu merch, some waifu pajamas, super comfortable. Always recommend. And yeah, stay safe out there, enjoy, and I'll see you next time, guys. Stay safe. Peace.